Here's a general overview of this is not this dam, obviously, but it's just a schematic of the typical elements of a dam, just to make sure that we all have the same language when we're referring to some of the elements of the dam. So the top of the dam is known as a crest. And for a dam like this, it's an earthen dam. You have an upstream slope and a downstream slope. The upstream slope faces the reservoir side, and then the downstream slope obviously faces towards the downstream end of the channel. But we have a principal spillway or a service spillway, also known as a service spillway, which is basically a pipe that allows water to go from the pond side to the downstream channel. And then we have also a emergency or auxiliary spillway that it's basically a low spot on the dam that allows water to go through during very high rain events and when the water gets really high in the reservoir side. So when you see this schematic, you'll see that there's water ponding on the reservoir. That's not the case for the old Lampasas Dam. It is what it's known as a dry detention pond. So most of the time, it's going to be basically dry, completely dry. But obviously, during rainfall events, there may be ponding while the water drains through the service spillway. So that's just some of the language considerations, and then just zooming a little bit further into the area. This is where the dam is. So this is Old Lampasas Trail. And again, this is Spicewood Springs Road. Here's the middle school, Canyon Vista Middle School. And here's the Pedernales Electric Station. Here's the park and some of the trails. So just to get you situated. I know that sometimes when you walk there, it's even kind of hard to know that the dam is there. It's very wide. There's a lot of large boulders and trees and vegetation. That's the location that we're referring to. So just to give you an overview and some background on the project, the dam was built in the 80s using some of the leftover material from when the subdivision was being constructed. It wasn't engineered as it would be today if we were trying to build a dam today, it wasn't built to those specifications. It was annexed as parkland in 1997. So that's when it became part of the city of Austin assets. And then fast forward to 2010, there was Tropical Storm Hermine, which dumped a lot of rain in the area. And there was some damage to the spillway that I was mentioning, the service spillway pipe. And so we became aware of that and we started coordinating with TCEQ Dam Safety Program. They're the ones that regulate dams in the state of Texas, dam safety in the state of Texas. So they're aware of it and we're obviously coordinating with them. They inspect us regularly. And through that, I mean, we know that we are required to address the issues in the dam. So we started working on the preliminary engineering report phase, basically looking at what the options were for addressing the issues. So a number of different alternatives were considered, including removing the dam or fixing it. Removing it is not really an option that we could take because it serves an important purpose. You know, the Pedernales electric facility is downstream of the dam, and the dam obviously is protecting that from flooding. We also have low water crossings downstream, some residences. So the dam is serving an important purpose. So we definitely need to address it. So that's why we started working on the PER report, and we selected to obviously fix the dam around 2013. That's when those conclusions of the PER came about. So we started working. There was a lot of coordination around 2014 with the different stakeholders like PARD and the U.S. Corps of Engineers and the U.S. Fish and Wild Service because of the site where we're working on. You know, we're working on a creek that will require Corps of Engineer permitting, and then there's also species that exist on site that we needed to coordinate with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So we continued, and in 2018 we were able to resume our design, reaching the 60% milestone, and obviously that's continued since then. So I'm going to take some time to kind of go over the specific things that we're trying to address with the dam. So I mentioned that the service spillway that I referred to earlier was damaged. So you can see a picture here in the middle of the slide at the bottom. That's the existing spillway. As you can see, it's a corrugated metal pipe spillway, 60-inch diameter. You can see that there's sections that are broken or corroded and misaligned. So obviously not not in good condition. In the left picture here, that's the inlet to that pipe on the pond side, on the reservoir side. It's at the level of the reservoir, but it's been some of the material on top of the dam of the pipe has been eroded. So typically you wouldn't see the pipe. It should be buried underneath the dam, but it's been corroded. So eroded. So now you can see it's exposed. So obviously that's not an ideal situation. So obviously that's one of the first things that we're interested in addressing. We're taking out the existing corrugated metal pipe and replacing it with a 42-inch diameter reinforced concrete pipe. So it's a more durable type of pipe. We no longer use corrugated metal pipes in dams because they don't last long and they get deteriorated, as you can see. So we're installing that new pipe, but we're also installing if you look at the picture on the right, that vertical white structure, that's a riser intake structure. So that's going to allow us to retain the water in the pond a little bit longer, just over a couple of days. The pond, it's still going to be considered a dry detention pond. Most of the time, it's still going to be dry. But during significant rain events, we're just going to be able to hold the water for a bit longer, which provides some water quality benefits because that allows some of the sediments to settle down and cleaner water to go downstream. So I know there's St. Edward's Park downstream, for example. This would provide some water quality benefits, meaning that the water downstream would have less sediment on it. There's also an existing wastewater line that runs sort of parallel to that service spillway. Since we're excavating there, we have partnered with Austin Water, so we can remove that existing wastewater line and replace it with a new wastewater line. It's also going to be encased, so that's just going to ensure that that line is in great condition and that it's also more easily accessible if it needs work in the future, so that this area doesn't have to be excavated again in the near future. Additional elements of the design will include, if you look at the picture in the middle, you can see this area here that's known as the plunge pool. It's basically where the service spillway discharges, the service spillway pipe discharges. So we're armoring it, maybe hardening it basically so that whenever that pipe is engaged and water flows through, that it won't cause erosion on the receiving creek. We're also installing a new head wall for that spillway pipe. And also, I mentioned the emergency spillway earlier. If you look at the picture on the bottom left, that's the existing emergency spillway. It's kind of hard to make because there's a lot of branches and trees, but it's basically a rock bottom spillway. Like I mentioned, it's a low spot for the water to go through during very significant rain events. You'll rarely see it engage. I mean, it really takes a significant rain event for it to engage, but it's important for it to function properly, obviously. So we're redesigning it based on with this project. It's going to be wider and it's going to be made out of concrete. And these blocks that you see, those are called baffle blocks, which allow for some of the energy that the water would bring to dissipate. So we don't have significant erosion downstream. And basically, it's being redesigned so that it can pass the required flood for safety purposes. We're also installing a maintenance drive. You can kind of see this on the middle view here. That's going to allow our staff to access the dam more easily so that the dam can be maintained frequently as needed in the future. Additionally, as I mentioned, like right now, if you go, it's kind of hard to make out where the dam is because it's so wide and doesn't have suitable material. So we're having to remove the top layer basically of the dam so that we can remove all of those boulders, all of that undesirable vegetation, and some of it doesn't have, for example, compacted fill or anything like that. So we're going to remove all of that material and replace it with adequate material with compaction. We're going to have adequate erosion protection, and we're going to plant grass so that it can be adequately maintained and inspected. So this is going to also require us removing the trees that exist on top of the dam. For dam safety purposes, you don't really want to have any of those trees on the dam because the roots can create pathways for the water to get through the embankment, and that over time can cause the structure to fail. Trees also don't allow for the dam to be adequately inspected. So that's one of the reasons why the TCQ requirements are that there shouldn't be trees on the embankment. So we're regrading the structure, and we are also increasing the height of the dam so that it can contain it's known as the probable maximum flood, which is basically the worst possible flood scenario that you can imagine, because obviously dams are designed to the highest possible standards because we don't want them ever to fail because it could be catastrophic. So we're increasing the height of the dam to meet those standards. You can kind of see here that dashed line is the existing ground elevation, and then we're going higher and obviously making it a straight top of dam elevation so that we can make sure that we're keeping the required elevation. As I mentioned, we're having to remove trees from the dam embankment, and we are, as part of the permitting process, we're going to have to mitigate for those tree removals. And for this project, we're able to partner with PAR to acquire a property. It's located at 5903 Spicewood Springs. We're partnering with them so we can preserve that property with all its trees and vegetation. It was a good opportunity because it's located in the same watershed and relatively close to the project site. So it was sort of a win-win situation that we could partner with PAR in this instance. Closing up on some of the additional elements that we're including in the design, we're also installing a new flood early warning system that's going to allow us to monitor the water levels at the dam and make any necessary notifications if necessary, if the water elevation, for example, gets over a certain threshold. I mentioned earlier that one of the reasons why we had to coordinate with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife is because it's a habitat for certain species, one of them being the Jollyville plateau salamander. The good thing is that as part of this project and as part of the conditions for us building the dam is we are improving the habitat for the salamanders. So that's also a positive effect. All of this is going to come at a cost of approximately $10 million for construction. You can see I'm just going to highlight some of the elements that I've already mentioned. So here's the maintenance drive, which is also going to function as a trail. And like I said, that's going to provide better access to our crews so that they can. Obviously, we're making a big investment here in this dam, so we want to make sure that it's being able to be maintained adequately. Over here, we have the intake structure riser that I mentioned. We're replacing the spillway, the service spillway. We're installing the new emergency spillway. Here's the plunge pool that I mentioned. This area we're going to use for staging during construction, keeping some of the materials. Once we're done, we're going to plant back some trees so that we can keep it in a more vegetated state. However, we are required to, like I mentioned, to maintain the dam without trees as well as a buffer because that allows for maintenance and for inspection of the structure. Here's some renderings of what the project would look like. Again, we're adding this intake structure, which currently doesn't exist. We're regrading the slope, and we're going to have that covered in grass. We're going to have the maintenance drive going into the intake structure and also going across the spillway and across the dam. And then looking kind of downstream, here's again that spillway. You have the maintenance drive. The maintenance drive going all the way to Lampasas Trail. And here you can see some of the future tree plantings. So now that you have a better idea of what we're doing, I just want to give you some information on kind of where we are in the process. So as I mentioned, there was a lot of coordination early on. We were able to get to 30% design and continue with the design in the summer of 2018. Right around that time, we received new precipitation information from the National Weather Service. It's the Atlas 14 rainfall data, which is basically redefining our existing floodplains. We already incorporated that information into our design. At that time, we also conducted additional surveys, and we coordinated with Austin Water about that replacement of that wastewater line. By spring of 2019, we had reached the 60% design stage, and we starting the process of obtaining our permit with the U.S. Corps of Engineers and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife for the modifications in the creek and the salamanders. That process is very time-consuming, getting the federal permit. We were able to get the permit last year, early 2022. We were finally able to get those federal permits, and at that time, we continued with the design process. And we reached 90% design, meaning that the design was mostly done. And we were just basically getting ready to start permitting in the fall of 2022. And that's kind of where we are right now. We're in the process of getting our permit. We're expecting to have that later this year. Once we have the permit, we'll be able to start the bid and award process so that we can find a contractor for the project with the expectation of starting construction next year. The earliest that we would be able to start would be in the early 2024. So again, the overall purpose of this meeting was to bring attention to you about this project, why we're doing it. Many people may not even realize there's already a dam there, that it's in need of repair. So what we're proposing is fixing the dam to make sure that it's safe and that it can be properly maintained in the future. And another objective of this meeting is to just let you know what you can expect going forward with this project. So during construction, there would be some detours of the trails. So trails may be closed temporarily, but we'll be offering detours. Like I mentioned, there'll be removal of trees and boulders at the beginning of the project. So there'll be truck traffic and staging. And so will be, like I said, additional traffic in the roads. So there may be a need to take detour for a certain amount of time. However, we're not expecting to close any roads. And like I mentioned, there will be also, staging of material and equipment during construction. Going forward, like I mentioned, we're needing to get our permit by later this year. Once we got to the bid and award, we'll get a contractor on board. And at that time, we will be able to do what it's known as a meet the contractor meeting, where we'll basically introduce you the contractor. And at that time, we'll have a lot more information as far as the timing of some of those impacts and how we can, coordinate with you so that this can be as smooth as possible. Then shortly after that, we would start construction, which is expected to last approximately 16 months. During that time, we'll continue to communicate with you. We'll typically have mailing lists when we can keep you updated with everything. We also have a project website as well. So here's some information on the project team. So Minda Sarmiento is our project manager. I'm the project sponsor for Watershed Protection. We also have Javier Ramirez with Austin Water. So he's a sponsor for the wastewater replacement. Obviously, we've been coordinating with PART throughout the process. That's the project website at the bottom of the slide. And that's, as I mentioned, we'll continue to update that so we can provide you the latest information on the project. With that, it's time for questions.
So we'll go ahead and get started. I know there was one question in the chat. David, why do we even need a dam there? Isn't there enough slope for the existing stream to transport heavy rains to Bull Creek without flooding the power plant?
The dam is existing, so as it is right now, it is providing that service, and that's the reason why the Pedernales Electric facility is safe right now. If the dam was not there, then there'd be issues there, but there would also be issues with the low water crossings downstream. So yeah, we considered removing of the dam. However, even if we were to remove the dam, it would also require us excavating. TCEQ has very specific guidelines on how the dam would be needs to be removed. So it would still require substantial work. We would also probably need to do additional work downstream to, because we would lose all the flood detention benefits from the dam. So there would need to be work downstream. So in the end, it would be more disruptive if we were to remove the dam than fixing it. That's kind of what the results of the preliminary engineering report phase were.
David, can you change the slide to the map that shows the area impacted?
I think we're trying to get an idea of how big all this work is going to be relative to, like Google Maps view of. Yeah, so this doesn't really show where the road is or a lot of the detail that the other slides show.
So this is Spicewood Springs, and this is where it goes into Lampasas Trail. So here's the Pedernales Electric facility. So actually, the dam itself pretty much is that trail that you see here. That's the footprint of the dam. That's basically where the project is located. Like I mentioned, we're also this is an existing footpath. We're replacing that with the access drive. So, but basically most of the activity would be concentrated in this area right here.
So how far up from the existing dam trail are you going to be cutting trees and So can you give us a rough idea of how far up into the valley you're going to be going?
It's just a footprint of the dam, kind of. I'm assuming you're familiar with the dam.
Yeah.
So just the structure itself, I don't know, 25 feet from where the dam
So
itself is.
you aren't going to be cutting any trees further up from there in that
No,
area?
it's just the structure itself, and then 25 feet from a buffer of 25 feet from the dam.
And what about toward the roadway? Is all this going to be visible from Old Lampasas?
I can share the rendering. So, like I mentioned, we have some trees that we're putting back here. So there'll be. I think those would be shown to make it not so visible. Then the trees here are going to remain. Those existing trees, kind of between or adjacent to the trail, and also adjacent to the road. Those are remaining. We're mostly clearing the dam footprint itself. This area we do have to remove them because that's for accessing the construction site and also for staging of materials. But we're putting back trees back there. We're also providing access to Austin Water so that they can access a manhole at that location for the wastewater line. I mean, we're only cutting down the trees that we absolutely have to remove because of the project itself and the footprint of the dam. That needs to be clear.
As far as width, is it similar to what we see on the Google Map image of where the trail starts to turn up into the valley? The Google Map. I think if you could show that would help. Yeah, is it going to be any wider than the trail that you're showing here? I assume not, but just wanted to confirm.
I mean, the trail is going to be wider, but are you asking about the width of the trail or the?
No. Sorry, the width of the dam. We talked about the impact to the top and the bottom toward Lampasas. What about to the left and to the right of? Is it going to extend beyond where the trail, for example, on the right is extending?
No. No, the length of the dam is not changing. It's just we're just changing the cross sections, so the slopes themselves, but the length of the dam is going to remain the same.
Okay, let's Jerry Hodge. I believe you had a question. Do you want to unmute?
Yes, there's the big one, and I think I know the answer to this. The existing trails that are up the creek from the dam, they'll exist like they are. The ones that go like north, right? Yeah, right. Those.
So there.
Yeah.
Those we're not proposing to.
Not doing anything to those.
No.
Okay, and there's back to the dam. If you could point the earth dam with your pointer to the left. There was a creek bed and there's stairs, where stones have been laid down to go down into the creek and back up, and then you go up on the dam. I'm taking that those are going to be taken out.
I'm not sure if you're referring to the
west side of your dam, right?
Yeah, it's that T section on the left, right there.
Right. Yeah, right there, right where you have the cursor. There's a little dry creek there, and these steps go down. They've been dry laid down in there. You go down, and then you come back up, and then when you do, there's a little bit of a trail, and then it's the dam. I think from your picture, the construction, you're going to take all that out. So.
Yeah, we're regrading that whole area, and we're also replacing the existing emergency spillway with a new concrete spillway. So yeah, that area it's gonna look more like the renderings that I was sharing with.
The spillway will be there. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's I think you're referring to the emergency spillway that right now it's rock, but yeah, we're installing the new spillway and then regrading it.
Oh, that's the emergency spillway?
Well, it may be part of it, but yeah, regardless, we're also regrading that area of the dam. So yeah, it's going to look different than what it does right now. Yeah,
I sure like that. That's a nice feature, but yeah, I understand. Thank you. Sure. That's all I had.
June, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you for taking my question. So you talked about the maintenance drive. So can you show on this map what is the path of the maintenance, the future maintenance drive?
So on this map, it's basically right here would follow the same path right here.
Okay.
It's just gonna be wider, and to allow for the vehicular traffic, and then it's gonna make a turn here to allow to access the new intake structure, and then we also have the top of the dam itself. So it's really gonna be similar footprint to what we have right now, but it's just gonna allow for our trucks to be able to maintain the dam.
Okay. Thank you, David.
David, we have a question in the chat about, please explain why you're proposing the acquisition of the property at 5903 Spicewood Springs Road.
So that was, it's not directly related to the project. So what happens is, as I mentioned, we were not able to keep the trees that exist in the dam because of the work that we have to do in order to make it safe. Whenever the city has rules about removal of trees, we have the project has to mitigate for the loss of trees somehow. And in this case, we were able to identify this site that was in 5903 Spicewood Springs, like I mentioned. That is a desirable location. It's in a natural state with lots of trees. So that we partnered with PART in order to acquire that property, so that property could be, preserved. The trees in that property could be preserved, and that's a way for us to mitigate for the work that we had to do on this site. So it's doesn't really have anything to do directly with the dam itself, but it's just a way for us to compensate for the loss of trees in this site.
We also have another question in the chat. Given the park-like appearance of the finished project, this will likely attract people to come to the area. We already have trouble with people parking on the side of the road all along Spicewood Springs and Old Lampasas, making a dangerous traffic situation. I see no parking as part of the project. How will you accommodate the people this project will attract, or otherwise discourage people from coming and parking on the road?
Yeah, we're not proposing any parking. I'm not sure if, we're not advertising it. I understand concerns about potentially attracting more people, but we're thinking that, we're not really advertising this as a new park or anything like that. So we're expecting that most of the people that would come would still be the same that are currently using the park, but I don't know of any specific plans for addressing parking issues in the area.
It seems like with how you're buffering it with trees, you might attract more people if you had a parking lot. So yeah, I can understand not having a parking lot.
We're very concerned. Like we don't really want to take more trees or more space from what we already had to do. So we're basically touching it the least that we need to. We're just trying to do the work and try to leave it as is as much as we can.
Hi, Fred Manley. One of David, kind of carrying forward your thought, seems like kind of the way we market this with the way there might be any signage talking about the project could help to not encourage people. If we don't use the word park, if we just say that it's a remuneration or an improvement of an existing spillway, that might cause people to go somewhere else. Don't know, just a thought.
From our standpoint, this is just a dam modernization project. We just have it happens to be in this parkland area, but for our purposes, we're just trying to address the issues at the dam. And really, we're needing to provide access for maintenance, and that's basically everything that we're doing is just for the dam safety purposes. And we're definitely not advertising it as a park.
Eric, I believe you have your hand up. Do you have a question?
Yes, I was the one that asked a question about parking. I think even if you don't advertise it, they will still come. And I think by making this area more attractive, you are going to get more population there. Or have you considered at least putting signage on the street that says no parking as part of the project? Because I guarantee you, having lived here and driven down Spicewood Springs Road where you already have a park, the parking extends way outside of the limited amount of parking that you have there. It is something I think you need to consider regardless of whether you advertise it as a park. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your comment. We'll definitely keep notes of any ideas or concerns. So appreciate that.
We can work with Austin Transportation Department to figure out the best way to address issues there. There was a question about trees near old Lampasas marked with ribbons, and the trees were marked for the tree survey that was performed on site. Any trees that were larger than, is it 4 inches, were surveyed. David, can you put the presentation up that shows the project timeline?
Sure.
I asked the question about the tree. The question is, what does the marking mean? Does that they were surveyed, but does that mean they were surveyed for removal, or what was the purpose of them being marked?
At that point, it doesn't really indicate. I mean, the ones that you're seeing, they don't indicate whether they're staying or being removed. We just needed to survey the trees that exist on site, and then we're only removing the ones that, like I said, that are either in ways we're in places where we're regrading the dam, or we're basically trees that are not supposed to be there per dam safety regulations. But the markings themselves, it's just part of the survey.
So perhaps part of the tree mitigation project to figure out what you have to mitigate.
Right, exactly. Because we need to know exactly what's on site, not only the number of trees, but the species and the diameter. And then based on that, that's how the mitigation is determined. So yeah, that's just the tree survey to know what's existing on site.
Got it. I was concerned that you were removing everyone that was marked, and it was pretty much every tree down there. So didn't want to see that happen.
No, we're only, and I think that this kind of shows you like the ones that you see kind of blurred there, those are all staying, and these are new trees that we're planting. So we're removing quite a bit of trees on the dam, but only the ones that we definitely need to remove.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry, did you have another question?
Yes, ma'am. I've seen pictures of a lake or a retaining pond. Is that going to be there all the time, that footprint, more or less, or is that just an estimate? Is there going to be standing water back there all the time, I guess is the main question.
No, it's not. So we, like I mentioned, it's going to work a little bit different than it does right now. So I'm going to show you. Here's that intake structure. So we have that structure, like I mentioned, that's the riser that's going to allow us to maintain water a little bit longer. But this should be like during significant rain events. It's just going to last a couple days there, and it's gonna be draining out. We actually do want it to stay there for a little bit, just to allow, like I mentioned, for some of those suspended sediments, to settle down to the bottom, so that it can improve the water quality. But it's just a couple of days, definitely less than 3 days, and then it should just drain out. It's still a dry detention pond. That's not changing.
So up the canyon, it'll still be dry when it's dry.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. June, did you have another question?
Yes. So this 10 million project has already been approved. The budget has already been approved.
I mean, we're still looking. I mean, it's in our 5-year plan. So we have plans on how we fund projects. We don't necessarily have a specific funding source for the project, but it is a very high priority for us, and so it's part of our 5-year plan. So our intention is to go ahead with the project. So yes, it has been approved. It's just a matter of us finding exactly how we fund it, but that's kind of more like an internal thing. As far as the project is concerned, it is approved.
So like if from probability perspective, is this project going to go ahead like 90%, or any obstacles that you see, or I just want to get a feel?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're still in the city permitting. I would say that this is an interesting site. This is mandated actually by the state. Like I mentioned, TCEQ mandates that we address the dam. We have cleared a very significant hurdle with the federal permits, because that's not an easy permit to get, and we already got it. So our next hurdle is making sure that we satisfy our own city permitting requirements. It's still it's not an easy process, but we're confident that we should be able to make it happen. But I wish I could give you a percentage. I mean, we're 100% committed to doing it, but it's just my best estimate is that we are going to be able to proceed. It's just hoping that we're able to do that, like I mentioned, starting within the next year or so. Obviously, I cannot predict exactly how things are going to go.
Okay. Seems like your confidence is relatively high. Okay, I got that. Thank you.
Michael, your hand was raised. Do you have another question?
I do. Thank you. I thought I saw in one of your cross-section drawings that the top of the dam's going to be about 12 feet higher than it currently is. Is that about right?
It is going to be higher, not necessarily 12 feet, but maybe closer to, it just depends actually, because the problem right now is that it doesn't even have an even elevation. So there's places that it could be close to 10 feet, but it's overall, I think if it's around 8 feet higher, I think it's going from like 765 feet elevation to 773, and it's now going to have an even elevation. And again, the reason why we're doing it's because we need to be able to contain and safely pass that probable maximum flood, which is the standard to which the dams are designed to make sure that they don't run the risk of overtopping.
David, your hand is raised. Did you have a question?
Yeah, currently, I've never really even seen any water in this retention pond, and I hear you that it flows out pretty fast, but is this materially adding to the water that's flowing into Bull Creek along Old Spicewood, what we all refer to, I think, as Old Spicewood Springs Road? Is this going to reduce the number of times that we're not able to travel down Old Spicewood, or speak to any of that?
I think you may be referring to the low water crossings on Spicewood Springs. Well, I mean, I guess one of the reasons why this dam is required is to make sure that doesn't get worse. This was not designed basically to remove that risk from the road. So in that sense, it's not really going to reduce the inundation, but it's just going to prevent that from being worse. Because if we didn't have the dam, it would definitely be a lot worse. So it's kind of going to preserve the current conditions, but just making sure that it's not deteriorating further.
Any idea what kind of rain event would be required to hit the spillway? Like I said, I've never seen any real standing water in there. I don't go to that side of the trail that often, but
it's pretty significant. I mean, I know the one that we're proposing, it's going to be designed to be around the 100-year flood event, and that's the new 100-year flood event, which is higher than what we previously understood. I believe the current spillway may be somewhere between the 25-year and the 100-year. I know that it has engaged in the past, but it's only during very significant rain events. Yeah, it's one of those like rare events, but that can be pretty damaging.
We do have a question in the chat. Could the trees that are being removed be replanted at Talleyrand Park? It is hurting for trees since the drought and freeze.
That's something that we would have to, it's unlikely. A lot of the trees, unfortunately, also are not in great shape. The last few years have been pretty brutal in terms of, lack of rain and then freezes and all of that. We're looking into that kind of stuff. And like I said, we're trying to do as much saving of existing trees and adding additional trees, but that's something we could take a look at again, but it's unlikely that be a lot of opportunities for us to do that.
We also have another question in the chat. It was a question about traffic disruptions and when and how long they're expected to last.
That was my question. I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand. There was a project timeline, was more of the linear timeline, and I didn't know if it was in there. I don't recall seeing when we were expecting. It's slide 16. When we would be expecting traffic disruptions. Like, is it going to be during the school year? Is it going to be? I'm just trying to get a feel for what to expect there. Can you show me slide 16, please? So that's not there's nothing there about execution, right? Well, early 2024.
Yeah. So it depends on when we get our permit. So our best case scenario is that we're able to start construction like January or February of next year. And as I mentioned, there's about a 16-month duration in the project. Obviously, we wouldn't have the same amount of disruption as far as like truck traffic throughout the project. That's why I mentioned that once we get our permit and have a contractor on board, we'll have a better idea of the timing and when we can expect those disruptions. Right now, it's really kind of hard to predict exactly when that would be.
Great, I got it. I just didn't realize that we were that far out. Okay.
Yeah, but we'll definitely, like I said, we'll have that outreach during the meet the contractor, and we'll be coordinating with the residents so you all know what to expect, and we can make that as smooth as possible.
Okay, thank you.
So is this going to be visible from the street? I understand there's trees going to be there, but if you're going up 8 feet and that's already increasing elevation as you go up the valley there, yeah, is this going to be visible from the street from Old Lampasas?
I know that from the renderings we did. I don't know if we have any information. I guess I'm asking the rest of the team if anybody knows if it's visible from the street. I mean, I would think, yeah, I'm not really sure if it would be visible. I can definitely check with our consultants and see if we can figure that out.
Yeah, that would probably lend to there being more people walking around that area. If they're able to see it from the street, they may be inquisitive and may get more traffic back there than we have today.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason why it may be visible is because there's, we're right now all you see is the trees, and that's the trees on the embankment would be clear. So even regardless of the elevation, I mean, that would make it more noticeable as a structure. Because like I said, right now, if you go to the site, it doesn't even appear to be a dam. So yeah, it would definitely be something that would be more easily identified as a structure. And obviously that's by design too, right? Because we want to be able to inspect it and maintain it. So it's one of those things.
And Jerry, did you have a question?
The access road that's going to come from Old Lampasas, that's going to serve that area, service area. I guess you're going to have a big gate across there, lock gate.
We're going to have bollards. Let me see if I can show you the kind of similar to.
Oh, there. Okay.
There'll be also something like that.
But you just can't drive through it. And if y'all have service vehicles, you'll pull those out, I guess.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So only us would be able to access that through vehicles. But yeah, pedestrians should be free to use the trail.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
So there'll be 3 places where we have that. So there'll be some here, and then over here, and also on this side. So that way we wouldn't get vehicles on the dam itself.
And you said the road that's intercepting Old Lampasas that you're putting in, you're basically just widening the path that's already there.
And it's going to be concrete. So we're widening it and we're making it out of concrete for this particular drive.
Right.
And this is just going to be flex material. So it's still not, this is not concrete, but this is also a new, it's going to be on top of the dam as well. But yeah, the maintenance drive itself, it's going to be made out of concrete.
David, can you go to the slide that has your contact information? But again, if you have any questions that you think of after this meeting that we maybe didn't get a chance to address, feel free to contact Minda and David, who are listed here. They'll be your main points of contact, and we'll coordinate as necessary with Austin Water and Parks and Recreation and our consultants to address any questions that you might have. We appreciate your time tonight and appreciate your interest. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you.
Good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.